represent those of Revive FM or its management.
Hello, you are locked into Revive FM 94.0 with Louise Power. This show is about community matters, diversity and inclusion, a platform for women, leadership, entrepreneurship, and inspirational stories. So we're glad to have you on the Power Hour today. And my special guest is Dami Hastrup. He is the CEO of a VR tech company called the Moon Hub. Welcome to the show, Dami.
Thanks for having me on, Louise.
You're more than welcome. I'm really glad to have you here. I know we've been trying to arrange this for a while.
Yeah.
And finally, we've got here, and I know you've had a busy schedule. Plus, we've had COVID as well. So I'm really glad to have you here. Would you like to just introduce yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Dami Hastrup. I am the founder and CEO of Moon Hub. Moon Hub is a virtual reality training platform company, and we're essentially helping companies change how they train their staff by giving them access to a system that essentially helps them capture data in a really cool way. Basically, making sure that VR is the next natural step when it comes to using learning and development tech. And me, myself, I'm a London boy, born and raised. Originally was born in North London, raised for the majority of my life in West London, and for the last 3 years been living in Stratford, East London. So yeah, been about everywhere.
So you're a Londoner, and you're CEO of a tech company that does virtual training.
Yeah.
So what does that entail, the virtual training? What kind of training is it that you partake in?
Yeah, so I mean, there's virtual training, and then we do virtual reality training. So essentially, virtual reality, for those who may not be familiar with it, is essentially allowing yourself to step into a VR headset, so a virtual reality headset, and essentially it simulates what it's like to be in another environment. So sometimes people make these into animated, gamified looking places, but we take a slightly different approach. We help capture real life scenarios, and we'll recreate using our high definition cameras, and then we immerse somebody in those scenarios, and kind of like I wouldn't say total recall, but kind of like allowing people to relive these things and essentially get scored on how they would react to certain situations, basically allowing them to feel more prepared for future scenarios that they'd actually be facing in real life at their workplaces. So essentially making training more relatable, more applicable.
It's really innovative, and it's really exciting actually, because you think about any training that you've been on in any sort of like work environment, you don't actually get to partake and understand what that's like in its entirety until you're put in that position.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you may not be put in a particular situation for a while, or as soon as it happens, then the way you think you would react to something, or the way you think you'd behave, or even converse with somebody completely changes because you feel really off guard. So having that reality and having that real experience, do you find that the people that you interact with, your clients and the employees, what's their kind of feedback once they've received that real, I
think the first reaction most people have when they step into sort of what we create for them is one of, I don't want to say awe or wonder, but one of those things. And they love what they see. They're sort of taken aback as to how realistic we can make things look. But if you kind of imagine what Iron Man would see, like a heads-up display, so loads of really cool information points just bouncing around everywhere, whilst you're being scored on what you're seeing. Essentially, what they feel is, okay, this is like a real life situation, but I'm actually getting a bit of help. The system's actually showing me what I should be looking out for. And touching on your point that you said earlier, when it comes to having to experience the situation for real before you kind of really get it.
Yeah.
I always like using the analogy of if you get told to look both ways before you cross the road all the time, but the day that you almost get hit by a car or hit by a bus in person, then you're actually like, okay, next time I cross the road, I'm going to be looking both ways at least 4 times before I even try and cross the road. But that's because you're like, oh my goodness, that's what it feels like. So playing on that mechanic in someone's mind and their memory function, that's what we're doing essentially to bridge that gap between learning and practical experience as well.
Yeah, it's nothing better than firsthand. The analogy when you're a child, don't play with fire, you'll get burnt. And what led you into the industry itself? What took you into the industry? Where was your interest? You said you was a London boy. Was you always a gamer? Like, was that always something you was really keen?
I am. I've been a gamer for as long as I can remember, actually. Yeah, growing up, I mean, I was both outside and inside a lot, but whenever I was inside, I was always playing video games. I think my first console was the PlayStation 1. I remember my dad bringing it home when we lived in a flat in North London, and I was just blown away by this thing. I used to spend hours in front of it. And, from the Nintendo GameCube to the DS to basically everything, I've loved games, but I've also loved tech as well.
Right.
And the inspiration for this is I've always been a bit of a sci-fi geek. I love the concept of virtual reality. I think it can look a bit dystopian if you think of people just having these headsets on all the time. However, what I wanted to do was take that image and completely flip it and actually show, no, it can be quite seamless and integrated into everyone's daily life. So when I graduated university, sort of during my time at university, I had done sort of loads of things in market research at different companies. So from law firms to petroleum analysis companies, and I even did a course at sort of Harvard for a summer as well.
Awesome.
When I came out, I was applying for jobs, and I was sort of getting to the final interview stages and being offered. But I just had this itch to really start this vision I had of, changing how people train and prepare themselves for different situations by using VR. So yeah, I actually got up and walked out of the final interview of like the last job I interviewed for, because I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm kind of kidding myself being here. I don't know who I'm kidding. And I got home, incorporated the Moon Hub on my parents' dining table that evening. That was about just over 4 years ago. And
Wow. I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it for the first time, guys. Like I knew some of it, but I didn't realize that the entrepreneurial spirit was in kind such that you just was in an interview and you was like, actually, I don't want to work for anyone else.
Yeah,
this is not for me.
Yeah, and to anyone at that, it was a big tech firm as well. To anyone who was conducting that interview, I don't know if you'd ever be listening to this, but if you are, I am sorry. It was nothing to do with you at all. You were all wonderful. But yeah, I couldn't really do it. And when I started, I actually worked at retail for a bit. So I worked in an Abercrombie. In the flagship store, the kids' flagship store, and I had known Vin from before, and I'd known Hannah from Leicester University. And whilst I was at Abercrombie, I sort of had incorporated the company. And by 6 months into my sort of part-time work there, I basically said to Vin, "Look, we know the ins and outs of how people train, and we've learned a lot as well because we've been looking at the KPIs of things, and I'm not allowed to say certain things, but essentially we were just like, look, this really can work. We've asked loads of people here who work here, this really can work. And, we left Abercrombie, around, I think, February 2017. And Hannah, who heard about what we were doing, really, really loved what we were doing, and
Awesome.
came on a couple of months after Vin joined. And from there, it was just, yeah, it was an incredible journey.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it you want me to ramble on about.
I remember one of the things that I found really interesting is when you was explaining that you was training during like a retail scenario.
Yeah.
Do you want to just explain to the audience a little bit about that? Because I thought that was really interesting. And I think that links into the fact that you was working in a retail environment. And then that some of that idea, did it come from that retail environment and how you was able to then immerse the two ideas?
Absolutely, yeah. So one thing about our platform, so our platform is called Rover, is that it has a patent pending spot and drop scoring system. So that's what sets us aside from most other companies. And without going too deep into how it's done because of IP, we actually used a lot of the knowledge that we gained from our retail experience. Vin had been there for far longer than I had. But yeah, we lent on that a lot because that actually helped us, create this clever little mechanism within the system that helps sort of gauge and predict certain things that happen. And it's great because what we then did was create in our demo system, which we now have today, these retail sort of scenarios. So let's say, for example, one of them is a shoplifting scenario. So you're tasked with finding a shoplifter. But one thing that we love hearing, especially when people try it on, whenever we've been going to pitches, is the first thing they put on is like, oh my goodness, there's so many people. But that's the truth.
So you said, oh my God.
There's so many people. Because when they try on the headset, they kind of look at it and they're thinking, okay, right, who am I looking for? Who am I looking at? I think it's this person, but it could be that person. And then instantly it clicks that, okay, no, this is actually what it's like on a retail floor. I don't have the full view in front of me as most training scenarios show. When you try and train on an iPad or a laptop, they show you just a video and saying, this is what it looks like and this is what you should look out for.
Right.
But the reason why people don't feel like they're better prepared is because that hasn't really shown them what it actually feels like to be in a scenario where somebody's sneaking off to the side and trying to steal something. And that's just one example out of many. You've got customer retention, you've got things such as store presentation, even security, people leaving bags under tables, and in the climate that we are today.
And reading people's personalities and the way that their face changes,
their body language, and
their body language.
Yeah, and essentially our platform allows for companies to see a score and just basically see how different areas, and again, I don't want to get too into it, but just how perceptive people were in certain areas and certain fields, and that's literally done through a spot on a job with a click.
It's amazing, honestly. It really is amazing. I remember, I think my first virtual reality experience was, do you remember the Trocadero?
Oh yeah. I used to love going there when I was younger. Is that still around?
No, it's gone now. It was Leicester Square.
It's gone.
It's been gone. Yeah, it's been gone for years. It's been gone for years.
I mean, I haven't been in a long time, evidently, but oh my goodness.
You remember that? Because like everybody would sort of travel down there because you could go have like a virtual reality experience, plus you could get like sweets and pictures taken and everything.
Yeah.
Like this was where we are now. This was the future in a long distance.
Yeah.
And you'd go in and you'd put the glasses on, or you'd be like driving a car, or having that, and it's just like, wow, this is the future. This is where we're headed, and we're going to be flying cars, and we're all going to be, speaking to each other virtually, and we don't have to be in the same place. And we're in 2020 now, and here we are having conversations virtually where we're not in the same place.
I know, right? And it's interesting because there are so many great people doing great things in VR. But one thing I really want to stress to everyone, and everyone's doing brilliantly, is don't forget the people. Don't forget the people who are going to be using it, because as you said, you can do so many fantastic things. But one of the things that we definitely try and hammer home is make sure that you bring people along with you. So don't make it too complex. Allow it to be really, really useful. And just kind of build them up with the system and the platform. And essentially, when iPads first came out, people sort of, how do I work this thing and whatnot? And now it's super. I mean, you have kids using iPads super easily, which is
at like 1 year old.
Yeah, kind of scary.
Before they talk, actually. There's a connection. Insane. Like there's an actual, like, sort of like, I think they've done studies, like there's like an emotional connection between like a parent's phone or iPad or computer and the child before they're even able to have a conversation.
It's incredible. And since tech is becoming more involved in people's lives, VR will eventually as well. And the studies that have been released, I mean, PwC released a report earlier this year, and it showed that VR training essentially helps corporate companies complete training up to 4 times faster. It's like 64% less expensive at scale, and people will display higher confidence when it comes to applying what they've learned. So it really is a no-brainer when it comes to the next step and the next generation.
Thank you so much for sharing. Part of the ethos here at the Power Hour is really connecting with the community. And I would really, as a Londoner, I would really like to know from yourself, did you always have that entrepreneurial spirit? Because I'm thinking about some of the young people that might be listening to the show, or some of the people in the community that are thinking about starting a startup company, or perhaps people in the tech industry are thinking about growth. They're a startup. Have you always been instinctively entrepreneurial, do you think?
Do you know what? I think I was talking to my cousin, I think a few weeks ago. Well, I'm not sure which conversation it was, but he said to me that he was quite surprised I went down the entrepreneurial route because, as I said, I was a bit of a geek when I was growing up, and I loved science, I loved tech, and he always thought, damn, you're just going to get a really, you're going to get, I don't know, like an IT job, or which technically I have. But the actual entrepreneurial spirit, I definitely sort of pay homage to my parents for that. Both of them are entrepreneurs, and my mum specifically owns a sort of a nursery chain in West London, and I saw that start from one nursery with a few kids to, like, 8 or however many they are. I think I lose count now as well. And I saw a lot of sort of strength and resilience in her, and I think she definitely helped teach me how to think outside the box and be creative. My dad as well, and it's definitely helped. And I think self-confidence is just understanding that it's okay to be told no.
We had a role model.
Yeah.
Your mum was a role model for having business, starting business. Just bear a moment. Zohab, I just wanted to make sure that I'm coming through okay on the radio. Is it? Fine. Starting business and being a role model in the sense that, I would presume that you saw her start that business from scratch.
Yeah.
So did she say anything? Did she instill anything in you? Or was it just visual? Like seeing mum like just go, in herself, I'm starting a nursery and just create.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I think, more visual. My mum always allowed us to be open and do whatever we wanted to do. It's funny because when I actually walked out of that job interview, she was not happy at all. Not because she didn't believe in me, but just because I genuinely walked out of a job interview. And as any grad would know that, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of grads out there who have, still currently.
You took a risk. You're risk adverse.
It was just, when I came home, understandably, she was like, what on earth are you doing? And she definitely pushed me into saying, look, work in retail for a bit. I wanted to anyway, but she said, look, do that, I know you wanted to do more market research, but whilst you figure out whether or not this is genuinely what you want to do, but that actually helped me double down. I had temp jobs, like working night shifts at a hotel and sort of all these things. And it really actually made me even more inspired just to really hit the go button on everything that I'm doing.
Yeah, it's so inspirational.
Thank you.
And I think you hit some really key things in this interview so far. You spoke about market research.
Yeah.
For some people that may not understand, it's about going out there and finding out what it is that customers need.
Yeah.
And how you can supply.
Yeah.
So give the service or the product for what they need, the demand. And I think being able to put all those things together is really, really, really clever. And also having that feeling and self-belief that actually I can do this. You know what I mean? Like, I've got it within me, and I feel risk adverse enough to say, I'm not going to get, I don't know when I'm going to get like a salary or I'm going to get investment or anything like that. But I feel completely motivated enough within myself to go off and start a business. And, at the time, what other things was you looking at? Because I'm just thinking about some of the people that might be listening. I was thinking you might be looking at your competitors and what's out there, and maybe sort of like how you actually get started get started.
Sure. Market research is very important. So as I said, like the company is just over 4 years old now, and it's been brilliant in terms of what I've learned. What's important for everybody or anybody listening who is, potentially tempted to start their own venture as well, is that it does take time. It may take less time. It may take more time. But I remember I used to always hear the quote, Rome wasn't built in a day. And I used to, you just pass off these quotes and think, okay, sure. Yeah. But okay, what do I do today? But if you actually take it in, it's true. A lot of these things take time. Building relationships with your potential clients or your customers takes time. A lot of the customers that we have now, we had either started conversations with years ago, or had, originally started to go in just for market research purposes. I remember the first day we had ever gone, so it was a major bank that we had gone into because we'd just been introduced to some people on the L&D team, and we went and Vin and I were heading this meeting, and we thought it was just going to be some feedback, and we actually got thrown straight into it. There were about 12 to 15 people around this big board table.
Wow.
And we had barely sort of a working system, and they said, okay, cool, what do you have for us? And we thought, oh my god, this is,
I've been in that situation before.
Right. It was we were just like, wow. And Vin kind of looked at me like, take it away, partner. I was like, okay, cool. He's usually always really, really great with doing the demo system. So I had to sort of give a picture of a lifetime, and we got loads of great feedback as well from them. They told us everything they liked about it, what they would like. And this was like in the very early days. So this is when we were still building it around what people would want. And that's the most important part about market
Yeah.
research, because what you feel is very cool is great.
Did you have a deck or anything at that time, or it was literally just, you know,
We
you
did.
explaining to them?
We did, but it will never see the light of day again. Compared to what we have now,
Yeah.
it will never see the light of day again. People compared our old logo to a bowling ball, and
Hey, we all got to start somewhere.
I designed that, so that did hurt when I got screaming face bowling ball. Did you ever see our old logo?
I think I did. I didn't think it was that bad. That was about a couple of years back.
Yeah,
yeah.
Thank you
I
so
didn't think
much,
it was that
Louise.
bad.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
To everybody listening that made fun of it, I hope you see I've got a supporter here in that.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely here to support. So I think for me now, I'm just so excited listening to all the stories and everything else. So the company's going for 4 years. I've known you for, I think, going on nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
And let's just say one of the most exciting things that we met at Plexel.
Yeah.
Plexel is a tech hub, a tech city over there in the Olympic Park. So shout out to all the Plexelites and all of our friends over there.
Yeah.
I have been part of the Plexel family for some time, and Dami as well. And I just wanted to say, from my point of view, as an entrepreneur, I remember going into that Olympic Park tech city space for the first time, feeling like, wow, this is bigger than me. Like this is big.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice for people? And I don't know if you had the same feeling when you went over to Plex. So have you got any advice for anybody when, just about sort of like being overwhelmed and still being able to grasp and hang on to that original plan, for what it is that they was trying to because sometimes you can be overwhelmed and think, wow, this is bigger than me. Can I really do this? And, imposter syndrome sets in and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. So do you know what? That's a really good point, because a lot of the time in the early days, you sometimes feel, I always use the analogy swimming in air, but I think I have a better one that's just come to mind. But sometimes you feel like you're paddling and nothing's happening. Like you're not even sticking the oar into anything. You're not sticking it into water, mud, anything, because you don't feel like you're getting any traction. And imposter syndrome can start to kick in. And years ago, when we were working from dining tables and coffee shops, we were building, but it was too early. We didn't have something, that companies wanted at that time, because of course it was years ago, and we didn't have the funding, the backing, and we were doing as best as we could. And when we came to Plexel, I really love Plexel. I think everyone there is super awesome, has been incredibly supportive as well. I love the environment. I think it's one where innovation thrives, because it's a space where people are very like-minded. You have people who want to create things, and that is their core driver, nothing else. And I think a lot of things can pollute an innovative mind in the world.
Yes.
So Plexel seems like a bit of a bubble where that doesn't happen. And when we came to Plexel, I remember it was actually I think it was like a couple years ago. It was actually on Hannah's birthday, because we had been working from dining tables and coffee shops, and we had been introduced to the concepts of Plexel by a website client. So we used to do things like web design and graphic design to raise money back in the day. And they said, look, there's this cool place called Plexel. You should check it out. So we did. And we got there and we were blown away. We thought, how has this been around the corner? And we had no
You didn't
idea.
know it was there.
We didn't know. And we came in and we thought, yeah, 100%, we're going to, even if it's me and scrapping all the money we have together, we're going to, be on hot desks here. We'll hop around. I think for the first few months we were there, we were known as the hoppers. We were everywhere. I think no matter what anybody wanted to hear, if they wanted to get on with their work, it was like, nope, hi, we're Moon Hub, how you doing? Or the Moon Hub at the time. We hadn't dropped the there yet. But and it was brilliant, because whilst we were there, you really get us. And when I was talking about the paddling thing, you're onto something. As long as you can paddle, you're onto something. You just need to be in the right area where you can gain some traction, have some people who believe in the vision like you do as well, and can really give you a helping hand and push you along. So yeah, I'd say if you feel like you're not gaining any traction, you are, but definitely try and make friends, because genuine connections are important. But also, make connections, make friends, and get a community around you that also.
I was going to say, build your team, your tribe.
Yeah, your tribe. Exactly.
Yeah, and sometimes your tribe might be the people that you work with, and then you're going to have your cheerleaders in your family and friendship groups.
Yeah,
and people, where you can, and then somewhere you can perhaps have an outlet.
Yeah,
some downtime. To keep that mind and keep your good mental health by exercising and just going back to like I know I like to go back to a Canva board sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I will like put my business down and my ideas down in very basic principle. And then I'll go back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had like 4 or 5 different things that I wanted to do, but because time's gone on, life gets in the way, and you start doing other things. You're like, you know what? I forgot about my Canva, and actually there's some really good points in there. So sometimes it's about going back to basics. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is funding, because going into premises and being able to afford premises and being able to grow and change logos and immerse yourself in such a fantastic way as you have, would we be able to share some of that common wonderful knowledge about how is it that, you know, we get from Dami Hastrap from London with an idea about doing virtual reality training in retail departments and in all these awesome places, to being able to actually do it?
Wow. I mean,
I know it's a big question, but
it
take
is.
time.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, even thinking about the journey that I've had and the team's had, it's been really interesting. And one thing I can definitely say is that every single person's journey will be different. In terms of the funding and how we got there, I mean, it was 2.5 years, just over 2 years until we got our first amount of funding. And you think, how do you even keep yourself going for that long? And be creative is what I would say, and also be resilient. I think there's one word that is always used to describe myself and the team, and it's tenacity or tenacious, which we kind of like, so we'll keep it.
I like that.
Yeah, but also make sure you don't try and go it alone. You have to have people around you who are supportive, and I know that's not something that everyone is fortunate enough to have, but it comes back to when I was talking about building communities, building those people around you that kind of want to support you and see you thrive. And before I got into the funding, even like thinking about times where I'd be shooting, so having the VR filming day and then having to run to the night shift at the hotel. And I remember, like, my best friend would drive me there. I have so much love for him, even for being so involved and just helping out, like
just helping out, the small things, right?
Like literally like family to me. And it's one of those things where when it comes to trying to go for investment, investors need to, especially in the early stages, they need to believe in you. But they can't believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. So if you're somebody who, I mean, our initial investor, and we're super grateful to him as well, when we first approached him, it wasn't the right time and it was a no. But we approached a year later and then it was a yes. And it was because we had gone away and we thought, okay, cool. We believe that this is definitely something that is going to be a winner. And we're just not conveying that correctly yet. So what do we need to do to correctly convey that? I think if an investor can see how much work you're doing to try and essentially take the legwork away from them. So say, look, we've gone to these companies. This is what they've said. We've done this by ourselves. We've done it on this amount of money. Imagine what we can do with more. In the early days, it will still be more of a like taking a punt on the company, because of course there's no huge amount of metrics, especially for us anyway, because we're a B2B company instead of like a generating thousands of users kind of thing. And again, it's networks, especially for the early stages, going to angel networks, and don't try and build relationships with investors you don't get along with. They're going to be buying into your baby, your vision. So you want to make sure that whoever's buying into it, if you have the luxury of this, just make sure that you get along with them. Make sure that there's somebody you have a genuine connection with. Genuine connections are something that's very important to me. I don't like forcing connections. I don't like forcing relationships. I like to think I get on with most people.
But there has to be some sort of genuine, some sort of like-minded kind of connection. Just bear with me one moment. Just having a little shout out to the studio, because we're post-COVID, and I just want to make sure, because this part here in the ears I can't hear, and I'm just making sure that we're not going into a commercial break and I've missed anything here. Okay, everything's fine. That's good, because we're post-COVID, guys, and it's all changed here. So I just wanted to make sure that everything is being done correctly.
I can still hear you. You're pretty good on here.
Brilliant. Okay,
Awesome.
That's good. So you were just talking about the funding.
Yeah.
So because I wanted to know about is there a sort of like a way that you may be able to break down in simple terms the seed and pre-seed, maybe how people may understand how if you have an idea and you need funding, And I know that these are terminologies, but just in sort of like simple terms for them.
For sure. So it's interesting. So the UK and the US, we have Europe and the US, and they're kind of different ideas of what pre-seed and seed are. Over here, the bar for pre-seed is a bit higher than it is in the US. In the US, you can raise millions off of an idea as long as you can market it quite well. Over here, they demand a bit more from you. Over here, when it comes to a pre-seed round, for us, it was having an MVP and having strong interest. And even then, I'd say we were quite fortunate to get what we got. Seed is what we're currently at now. The raise at the moment is starting to pick up momentum. It's going pretty well. And it's interesting because at this stage, we've now got pilots and working relationships with very big companies. Some I'm not actually allowed to say.
Yeah, that's fine.
Here,
but during seed, you can people will have pilots and have some sort of case studies and have some experience.
Yeah, so seed is to expand what you're already doing. Pre-seed is to pretty much get it off the ground.
Yeah.
So a pre-seed round is quite important because when you fulfill a pre-seed round, it's delivering on the promise that you promised your pre-seed investor that look, we are doing this with bootstrap money.
Mm-hmm.
With pre-seed money, we'll be able to get and hit the milestones that are required for either seed money or to be self-sufficient. So a lot of work happens between sort of pre-seed and seed because you're essentially converting that money into a working company that more investors will want to pump money into / you'll actually be self-sufficient and be able to get enough clients off the ground to essentially be self-sufficient. And it's very interesting. Both there are different ways to approach them, but with pre-seed, what we found is the personal relationships are very important, and even with seed, the personal relationships are very important. But when you're at seed, you'll be dealing more with VCs,
right?
And VCs are you have
just tell them what a VC is.
So a VC is a venture capitalist,
Mm-hmm.
or a venture capital company, and essentially they take equity. They take equity in your company, in exchange for them giving you money like a normal investor, but they answer to people who also have given them money to invest that money. So what you'll have is things such as fund cycles, which is, for example, if let's say I'm a Mr. Bigwig and I have loads of money and I give a VC my money and I say, look, I want this back in 8 years, do something with it. And let's say, for example, they're 5 years into having that money and then you approach them. It will be in the small print, but essentially it will be, hey, by the way, you have 3 years to turn this around. We want this kind of target. Whereas some funds you'll have, the full 8 years because you start at the beginning. So if you're at the seed level, it's very important to, make sure, hey, okay, how long have you had this money for, and how long do you have left to give it back? Because all VCs want an exit, right? They're going to make money on your company. They may really like you as a person, but at the end of the day, you are an addition to the portfolio. You need to be able to provide a return. And most VCs, I think it's like an 80% fail rate. So most VCs, when they invest in companies, 80% of them fail. So they need to rely on the 20% that do succeed to succeed very, very well. So that's why it's tough to get VC money, because they want every single company that applies to them or that they accept to be potentially part of that 20%. Because if that company does succeed, it can't succeed in a mediocre way. It needs to excel, and that's why every unicorn.
I can imagine as well, some of those VCs, there's quite a lot of accountability. Some VCs may just give you the money and let it get on with it. And you have another kind of VC that wants a very close working relationship. They want to know what's going on. I guess people work in sort of like different ways. And I think you mentioned an interesting word in the startup world. I'm very familiar with, called bootstrap.
Yes.
Bootstrap is when you start your business on a shoestring, pretty much like I did. And sounds like what Damien did. On a shoestring, from your home, bedroom, coffee shop, wherever really, mobile phone, laptop, little bit of budget, not really living on much, but just putting in all the hours, not necessarily having any significant amount of money to start off with. That's exactly what bootstrapping is. It's making sure that you can do the most you can with as little as you have, and essentially that's kind of, every single company bootstraps at the beginning. Well, most do, but getting to that first initial stage is tough, as I'm sure you have experienced as well. And Bootstrap leads really nicely into community, into diversity and inclusion, because I was a woman. I'm a woman from East London, a mother, and certainly for me, there wasn't any sort of like family that could put together for a business for me, or
Right.
money together or anything like that. And I know that in the community that we live amongst, Newham, Tower Hamlets, Hackney, there's, as much as these areas are quite influential, there's also quite, it is quite poverty derived, and there is, pockets where we need opportunity. People need opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about bootstrapping, it does make me think about, a lot of people in the community that may be thinking about, I'd really love to start a business, but how do I even get started? Or, I've got to pay my bills every month, and could I really even start something? And I'm into tech, but is it an inclusive place for me? I don't really see many people that look like me, or can I even get investment? So, for me, encouraging more diversity and inclusion in the tech space. I think the tech space is a wonderful place to be. And it's a fantastic community, and places like where we work together as well is a fantastic community. But yeah, I'm just thinking about how we can immerse more diversity and inclusion in the tech space. For people that may feel like it's not an inclusive space for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, as you know, in Plexel, we have some great companies. I mean, you've got Mete's My Life, My Say. You've got Nana's Badu Sports. Badu Sports do, incredible things for the community as well. And, they actually gave me the opportunity, and I felt very, very privileged to do so, to talk to some I think it was year 12s and 13s, going on to university. And, a lot of them had questions for me about, okay, cool. Do I go to university? Should I do this subject? Like, what kind of things should I do? And it was interesting to hear, because there is sort of a preconception of, okay, what is it that I'm kind of not welcome to do, but what is it that I should be expected to go and do? Because tech, as you said, doesn't always present itself as a very inclusive space, especially when you look at companies VCs that invest in companies, and you look at the boards of those companies, and there's a very common factor there. And in terms of what we can do to try and change that, honestly, there are so many different things. I think first and foremost is inspiration. People need to actually feel have the willpower to fight and go for it. And I always welcome the opportunity for anybody. That's why if I ever get sort of an email from a student or somebody who's aspiring to do something similar or anything like that, I will always make time for them, just because not many people do. So I think, a lot of, as a Black person, as a Black man myself, I understand that, sometimes it can feel discouraging as well, if you don't feel like your voice is one that is as valid or matters as much. So it's very important for a lot of these kids coming through to have role models and people that they can look to, or say, you know what, they're doing it. I want to be like them, or I want to try and do it. To say that I'm at that kind of level yet is a bit beyond me. I don't think it's something I would definitely like to aspire to get to, to be somebody that
no doubt.
I would like to get there at some point, to be somebody who does inspire people eventually. But for now, I think just believing in myself and pushing as fast as I can, as forward as I can really then allow others to see, okay, look, these are the things that he's been through. These are the things that he's overcome. I can do it too. And I really want to encourage everyone that, you can. 100%, some people's circumstances are way tougher. And as you mentioned, especially in places like Tower Hamlets and areas just all around us, it's, can be very tough to get into those spaces. But I think it sounds so simple, but a conversation with somebody who can give you advice as to what the road ahead can look like, can really help you shape not only your idea, but just how to execute that idea and how to move forward with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that everything you said is correct, and I think you most certainly are a role model already, and you are inspiring people. Hence the reason why I'm like, you need to be on my show. First of all,
sorry, it's taking so long.
So first of all, you are definitely an inspiration amongst our community where we work, but also, amongst the community in world of tech. And as a Black man, I think that even more so a role model, because there are not many Black male CEOs in
Yeah.
in world of tech. What, and from a black male perspective, why do you think that is?
I think it was, do you know what? I think it was 0.9% of founders in Europe are black. I think that was,
Yeah, sounds about right.
Please don't quote me on that. I think I read that it was I can't remember which publication it was, but I read it earlier this year. Yeah, there aren't many.
It's higher than what I read, because I read 0.7.
Oh, really? Yeah. So maybe around 0.9, 0.7. Yeah, there aren't many at all. But what was the question?
No, I know. I was just saying, I wanted to ask you, like, do you think, what's the reason why you may not see many people like yourself?
That's a good question, actually. Because yeah, again, it could be a number of factors. It could be opportunity. It could be people feeling like, look, I need to make a living.
Yeah.
I'm not in a situation where I can afford to, take time out and think about my goal or a vision. So again, those support networks are very, very important.
Sorry to interrupt. School.
Yeah.
Your experience at school, mixed with home life, was there something that happened for you at school in terms of teachers or in terms of particular lessons that was encouraging, that helped towards steer this career?
You know what? School did play a role, but maybe not in the way that you think. So school kind of highlighted to me that there is a system that I may not be the most favored in. And for me, I wouldn't really say kind of in my own world, but often at times I was the kid I would bring a ball in because I wanted to sort of make it so that people would play with me, right? Or instead of being able to join somebody else's game. And I kind of went on my own path a lot because I often feel like I didn't really fit into a system that was already there. And I think, being in school, instead of it being, oh, wow, this is inspiring me to do so many things, it's kind of showed me, well, I'm actually kind of used to doing things my own way, because I don't feel like I really fit, what has been designed for me. It's not really fitting me very well. And yeah, I think with a lot of students, I mean, expulsion rates, and I never did get suspended or expelled, but expulsion rates and suspension rates aren't great, especially in inner city London for younger black boys and girls. But I think it's definitely disproportionately younger black boys as well. And that also can then lead to, because the thing is projection is a very real thing, right? If somebody treats you like a badly behaved person, or if somebody treats you like you're not going to go places, or if somebody says, look, that was never for you, or that's not your path, eventually you're kind of going to be like, well, sod it, screw that. Why am I going to try and
do anything differently? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people, I mean, if Einstein was to walk into a room and no one knew who he was, and somebody was to start a rumor that he was the dumbest man on the planet, he could say a million smart things, but the moment he said something that might be slightly silly, people will say, aha, see, yeah, he is. Similarly to these kids in school, if they feel like or the system isn't really not even tailored or adapted to them, but just doesn't give them as much of a fair shot, or is way less tolerant on them, and a lot sterner, it's almost kind of like I'm being judged before I've even done anything. And that can definitely lead to behavioral problems, because there's an element of defiance. It's human nature, right? If you feel like you're being sort of prodded and poked and pushed, even in the most subtle ways, you'll definitely kind of bite back and be like, leave me alone. What, if you say I'm such this person or that person, what, why should I make your life easy and make it and try and prove you wrong? I encourage kids to prove them wrong, but in a different way. Don't pander, but just I don't know, just try and excel despite what they say.
And you mentioned about like doing your own thing, and I think that's a fantastic opportunity for maybe your teacher or someone to notice, hey, maybe he has like a different interest. And it sounds like you started to mold that interest more when you'd left school and went to university and began finding your niche. It sounds like that's when you began to mold your interest, and it was sort of like school was like, I have to do school, but
yeah, do you know what? It's interesting. University definitely helps. So any of the sort of school kids listening, university, don't worry when you get there. Even if school may not be the easiest or nicest thing now, when you get to university, it definitely allows you to spread your wings a bit more, because everyone's kind of reinventing themselves and allowing to be themselves properly, I think, maybe even for the first time. But I think for me, the turning point was when I actually did that course at Harvard one summer, because I think the UK as a whole can be very, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a born and bred Brit. I love this place. But I think in our culture, it's very much a case of trying can sometimes be a bit uncool, right? We want to
Yeah.
be the reserved ones. We don't really sing and shout about what we do all too much. And if you're going to try something different, everyone kind of looks tentatively over their shoulder. And if it doesn't work out, everyone's like, see, knew it wasn't. Whereas I think over there, they had to do this kind of like, oh, okay, go. It didn't work out this time, but you'll get it next time. So I think being more encouraging to people who, I mean, if somebody comes up to you and tells you the wackiest idea, don't get me wrong. There are some good business ideas, and there are some maybe you should rethink that one. But in terms of like any inspirational idea, even this room that we're sitting in, these microphones that we're talking into, they were all ideas at some point. So just being more encouraging in that sense as well, and just be encouraging of your peers, and in return, I'm hoping that they get that same encouragement.
Just being supportive, isn't it? It's being supportive, and you're talking about the States, right?
Yeah.
The culture is very different in the sense that people are quite bold about risk and change and going for the goals and going for the hopes and going for dreams. And also, I think as well, like you said, sometimes the British culture is one that of safety. Yeah,
safety is very important over here. Sometimes to the detriment of our own creativity. I mean, even the software for Alexa, pretty sure it was anyway. Again, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it British made. YouTube started by 2 British guys. Like some of the really big things in the world were started here, and kudos to all of them as well. Like as in, it's not a failure by any shot that they've sold, but now YouTube is worth billions and billions, but that's because the Americans took it and ran with it because there was a big vision there. But we definitely have the talent and the creativity to do it here as well. We really should push more on this side of the pond because we have it. We have the talent. We have the creativity. And I think with London's the 3rd biggest tech hub in the world now, behind USA and China. That sounds about right to me. Please, everyone fact check these things. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but just make sure you double check. But it's exciting.
Did you have any, apart from the fact that, mum was quite entrepreneurial and it sounds like that was really instrumental, along with uni being instrumental, did you have any role models? Maybe not somebody that you knew, but just people that you looked up to that you'd look at in magazines or on television?
Yeah, well, I mean, starting with people that I know, I mean, there are many, people who had started their own businesses that I had been mentored by, that has just really helped us. Even, when we were doing the sort of whole website design thing, I'm very sure some of them took us on just to help support us. And, we will always be grateful to them as well. My friends have always been inspirational around me just because, if you have a bad day, if you have something that has kind of knocked you back, they'll be there kind of like, hey man, it's not a big deal. Come hop on the bad PlayStation 4 with us, PS4, let's play a bit. And, you'll get it next time, you'll get back to it. And, that around you, when people are sort of rooting for you, that is inspiration in and of itself, because you're like, I'm not the only one who's kind of bought into what I'm doing. Other people have as well, which is great. And in terms of people I look up to, just anybody who really sticks to their vision and is original. I know sometimes he can be quite the talking topic, but for the likes of Elon Musk or people who just have a vision and push forward with it, because things stay the same when nothing disrupts it. Right. So to be somebody who disrupts the system, you have to disrupt the system. You have to disrupt things, and change is uncomfortable until it's not. And then it's the new norm, and then change will come again. So, just anybody, I look up to anybody who, I could learn about somebody tomorrow. And as long as that they've stuck true to their vision and they've been original and they are passionate about what they do, to me, they'll always be an inspiration, because in a world that tries to kind of suck the creativity out of people, and yeah, I know, right?
Tell me about it.
Honestly, as in, oh my goodness, people lighten up. But it's in a world that can have some very negative, a lot of negative people. Those who push forward and press on, they're always gems to keep around.
Always gems, always diamonds. And in saying that, because we've got about 10 more minutes, I want to speak about lockdown, change.
Yes. Yeah,
change being the operative word. You just mentioned change, and you mentioned how things can, people start spitting there.
No worries.
Because I think thinking about lockdown and people just negativity.
Yeah.
Let's talk about lockdown. Like,
yes.
how was that for you?
Very interesting. For us, it kind of felt like a back to basics, back to our grassroots kind of feeling, because we went back to working from our homes and our dining tables. And at first I was like, oh man, we just, oh gosh. But I mean, not just, we'd been at Plexel for a while at that point, like over a year. But even still, we were like, man. But
did you feel like you was on the going up the mountain,
yes,
and then that happens?
It felt like, okay, a bit back to basics. But we're actually very fortunate because one, we're still here. Two, we're actually doing better than ever now. And three, this has actually kind of further proved our point that training needs to be useful, because companies that were relying on training before just to be kind of like, okay, we've done it, tick, but we'll teach them on the job anyway. Now that people aren't there all the time physically to teach them on the job, you need to rely on their training. And if the training isn't that good, you're not going to have the same quality of output that you normally do. So we've had, supermarkets reaching out. We've had other companies sort of really being like, okay, look, we need to, I mean, the companies that we're already working with, their training was good anyway, and they already had a good vision towards a pre-lockdown. When they approached us, they already knew, so they're quite innovative. And anyone coming on board, you're also innovative as well. Sometimes it just takes other people to catch on a bit quicker. But lockdown was strange. It was, we were very fortunate that everyone in our team was safe, is still fit and healthy, and we're very grateful for that as well. But it was a strange time, because you watched around the world as other companies didn't do too good, and you'd have fellow peers in the startup world who weren't doing as great. And it's heartbreaking, seeing other companies maybe struggle and not do as well, or maybe even try and consider, do we put an end to this? We didn't in particular, because we were still going fairly strong. But even for other companies that we knew, we would think, and no, I'd have phone calls being like, no, like absolutely not. You're not going to quit, because even though this is a global pandemic, this is what you've put into this. It will succeed. You just need to hold off for a bit. And I'm actually quite happy to say, I don't think I personally know one startup that's folded up. I know a few that considered, but that didn't actually do it in the end. But I think, from the pandemic anyway. It's just I think being what do you say?
Tenacity, having tenacity and team tenacity that you've had, I suppose, and motivation, keeping your mind like I suppose you had to keep motivated, because everything had changed at that point. Was you still working?
Yeah, adaptability. That's the word I was thinking of. Being adaptive or adaptable to everything. Were you still working? Yeah, we were. We were, on some projects being part on, part off, as you would. But, with some people just, saying, okay, you'll work on this one day and not one other day. But in terms of how we were operating, I think we kind of pivoted and focused inwards and said, okay, cool. There's a storm outside. We can't really go outside. So let's be as ready to explode out of the gate once lockdown is over, because it's not going to last forever. And when everyone's allowed to go outside, if we have been preparing to sprint the fastest, then we can really get a head start when we finally come back. And we've been seeing that as well. So it's very unfortunate situation, and of course with the hundreds of thousands of people millions who have died worldwide
that have passed away.
But we're very grateful that people in our team and around us have been safe and have managed to weather the storm as well.
That's well said. It has been a very the worst kind of thing that I've ever experienced in my lifetime.
How was it for you?
It was, again, like working from home and then having my son at home, and then speaking to other mums, other entrepreneurs and other people that have had to sort of, like, the world has stopped, and all the children are at home, and then having to sort of do some teaching, so teaching and learning at home with the children, as well as put some work on yourself as well. And then it was, in the beginning, it was really, really serious. It was like gloves on 100% of the time, mask, and only going out for like essentials. So and I think for the kids that was like, whoa, this is weird. This is really, really strange.
I think for them, they wouldn't really know what was going on as well, would they?
Yeah, there's like, what is really happening here, you know? So yeah, it was the world was like just feeling weird.
Yeah.
The world just felt really strange, and then you had to deal with the emotions of, you know, hearing really unfortunate things happening to people, and then, you know, the news, and yeah, it was, and I think an entrepreneurial mindset in general is quite positive.
Yeah.
I think that because we have to have tenacity and diversification, like think about different ways of doing things and getting over hurdles, I think even though it was very stressful time globally, I think because we'd kind of practiced that in our
and having a community, as you said before, in the startup world,
yes,
that actually really helped. Talking to other founders and being like how is it going for you? And they're like, dude, it is crazy. I have never been in like, what is going on? They'd ask me, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, what's going on your end? You'd ask another person, like, I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I think kind of not solidarity in chaos, but kind of solidarity in chaos. No one really knew what was going on.
Calm in the storm.
Yeah, we were all in this kind of journey together, and it was just, you know, a helping hand of advice. Oh, the government has released this, or they've said this, or they've done this, or this is the new thing, or that's the new thing. Oh, this company's trying this, or these are these VCs. It just helps when you have a network to lean on as well.
Yeah,
which is good.
So what does the future look like for the Moon Hub?
Hopefully, yeah.
Tell me what's happening. What does the future look like? And, you know, how do you envisage things over the next couple of years? Let's just put in our minds that another lockdown is not going to happen. Let's be completely positive. No lockdown is going to happen. This is where we're heading. Where are you heading?
In a very exciting place.
Yes.
Yeah, we're working with some incredible companies. Again, we haven't got full press rights for some of the names yet, but they are very exciting projects. And one's kicking off next month with a PLC, which is really, really exciting. And, you know, we want to become the market leaders when it comes to corporate training, and, you know, having corporate companies convert their training into this virtual environment, just stepping into the new frontier and the new sort of generation of tech, right? And with the companies that we're working with now, it's really, really exciting stuff. We want to further develop the software that we have. We're starting to look at or conceptualize even how we're going to incorporate more AI and machine learning in what we do. And then from there, where do we take it next? Where will technology be at that point? You know, will we have more mixed reality? And, you know, just essentially going as far as we can. We're excited, and it's looking really promising.
That's brilliant. The team is growing. Everything's happening. You guys are innovative. You know, things you're moving into new markets. As well. So, you know, I think, you know, having this interview with you has really opened up my eyes to your backstory.
Thank you.
And where you're coming from, and where you're going to, and you've left some real lovely little edibles and takeaways for people to be thinking about in terms of funding, in terms of keeping their motivation and inspiration, and what they can do, and building your tribe, you know, which is really, really important. And just about looking for role models and little takeaways from people that have been there to inspire you on your journey. And actually, I think the most powerful thing, and it seems cliche because this is the Power Hour, is
I love the name, by the way. I love it.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. The Power Hour is, you know, about never give up. Rome wasn't built in a day, and anything that you put your mind to, you can do. You know, Dami was really open, talking about being a young black boy from London, and openly saying, hey, I was different, and I was never really part of a particular group of people. I always knew that I had something else within me, and something else within me that was quite special, that I wanted to adventure and I wanted to seek out. And I think those are the touch points, and these are the things that we want to say, that you can do it. Yeah, wherever you're coming from, and whatever it is that you think may be holding you back, there isn't anything to say that, you know, you can't get funding, or you can't be at the right place at the right time to start a company, and you know, it will grow and develop into something wonderful and awesome. So just keep going. And I hope you've had some really good takeaways here from myself, Louise Power, on the Power Hour, and Dami Hastrap. He is the CEO of VR tech company the Moon Hub. Just quickly tell them where they can find you, Dami.
Yeah, so if you ever want to reach out, you're more than welcome to. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody, especially if you want some advice. You can find me at Dami Hastrop on all social platforms, and you can find us at The Moon Hub on all social platforms as well. And thank you so much for having me on, Louise.
You're more than welcome, and hopefully you can come back again another time. You have been locked into the Power Hour with Louise Power. Thank you for listening today. We'll be back at the same time next week, 4 p.m. On Revive FM. Don't touch that dial.